The movie starts in a house where some people are packaging hard drugs. Terry Savage sneaks in with a gun to steal their money. He packs the money, but when he walks out the house, he meets with the police who apprehend him. They check his records and finds that he was actually a special ops soldier who was awarded medals after previous missions in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Nigeria. Police Commissioner Harvey Clark asks him why he chose to steal, and Terry says he couldn't afford medicine for his sick daughter. Harvey then offers to help him by sending him to a prison to investigate a warden in that prison who deals dirty and find evidence of human rights violation or corruption to put him down. Terry refuses, but the commissioner explains the jail term he faces and asks him to do it for his daughter, and he is forced to agree. He bids his sick daughter farewell, and Harvey gives him instructions for communication in his cell and asks him to take care of himself. Terry arrives at the prison, and Lieutenant Killian explains prison rules to the inmates. They chip him and show him his cell, where he finds a cell phone with a message to use the phone to send evidence. The following morning, Officer Killian rudely wakes up the inmates for breakfast. An inmate spills Terry's food and asks him to bow down, but Terry walks away. Terry later strolls around while inmates are playing, and an inmate tells him he hopes he can fight. Another inmate, Freeway, and his friends approach him and ask him to join their mafia, but Terry insists he flies solo and leaves them. While he is cleaning, he sees some Mexican inmates complaining to Freeway about his affairs with the warden. They attack him with knives, but he defeats them. Later in the cells, the Mexican gang members attack Terry, but another inmate, Bones, helps him, and the guards barge into the cell and send them all to solitary confinement, where Terry reminisces about his sick daughter. On the next scene, the warden punishes the Mexicans that attacked Terry and apologizes to Terry as he jokes about his family. He tells Terry about the private-owned prison and its boring affairs, and to make it more entertaining, he created a fighting tournament called the Dungeon as a way for good fighting prisoners to earn rewards. He tells Savage that he could redeem himself through it and gives him fighting clothes. He then sets Terry with a new roommate, and guard Gina walks in discussing his military career into his new cell, where he finds Bones, who helped him earlier. Bones asks Terry to forget about the outside world and learn to first survive the Friday dungeon, and offers to help him. Terry uses the phone to report to Commissioner Harry about the warden's dungeon, who needs visual confirmation. Bones trains Terry and later shows him the different prison gangs and the Black Mafia, led by Freeway, a good fighter who Bones also taught. The following day, the guards take Bones and Savage to the dungeon where the warden sits up front, and an inmate welcomes everyone to the dungeon where there are no rules, while other non-participant inmates watch from televisions outside. The fights begins, and Terry records with his phone as the warden watches while seated, and the fans chant down Freeway, who fights two opponents and wins. Up next, they calls on Terry Savage to battle El Vampiro from the Mexican gang, known for sharpening his teeth like a vampire. Bones tells Terry of El's fighting style of tackling, and in the fight, he defeats the Mexican. Later, the warden offers Freeway to choose any reward he wants after his thrilling performance, but Freeway asks to know why Bones is helping the new guy Terry. The warden says it was only at Bones' request, and Freeway reminds him to honor his promise of getting him out for keeping the inmates in check. Freeway threatens the warden that if he can't guarantee his freedom, he too can't guarantee to keep the roommates peaceful, and the warden explains his plan of getting Freeway a rematch with the top dog at a different Aurora State prison, and promises to set him free if he wins that match. Janet, a lawyer at the National Veterans Affairs, visits Terry after being assigned his case to help Terry get freedom since he is not a criminal, but Terry refuses. She explains of the intel on a corrupt system created by private prisons to traffic black and brown humans, and asks Terry to call her for any assistance before she leaves. Later, Bones prepares Terry for his next fight with Z, another best fighter, and asks him to employ more strength against Z's agility. At the dungeon, the fight begins, and Terry knocks out Z with a single strong punch, but refuses to beat him farther and leaves. Bones later explains to Terry how he got charged for murder, while Terry wonders about his own life. The following day, the other inmates see Terry as their threat, and two of them later attack him with knives. Officer Gina steps in to stop the fight, but one of the attackers mistakenly stabs her and runs away, leaving her in Terry's hands. Later, the warden thanks Terry for acting fast to save the guard and protecting his reputation, and Terry asks the warden to set him up for a fight with Freeway. Following this, Freeway scorns the attackers for acting without his orders, and later the warden calls them all in. He asks the Killian to kill two of the inmates for breaking his rules while Freeway watches. Freeway says he never gave the order, and the warden asks him to fight Terry Savage, which he is forced to oblige. Freeway confronts Terry about the fight and Terry calls him a bully, but Freeway suggests they give the real bullies what they want and leaves them training with Bones. Terry later texts Commissioner Harry that he intends to fight the top dog a last time and be done, and continues training hardly while remembering his daughter. Next in the dungeon, the warden announces the fight between the two, Terry Savage and Freeway, as fans cheer. The two exchange blows and kicks and Savage wins the fight. Later, Terry sends the commissioner evidence of the fight and asks him to get him out, but gets no reply. The following day, the inmates acknowledge Terry as the new man, and the warden shows Terry his new power with other teammates, but Terry calls them fathers and leaders who find no rehabilitation in the facility. The warden offers to support him to run the place, but Terry refuses, and he then shows Terry his hard drugs selling organization. Terry calls it slavery, but the warden calls it free labor and promises him he will enjoy more. Terry says he will think about it and grabs a handful of the drugs before walking out. He also shows Terry the bodies of those who attacked him, but Terry only wants to be with her daughter. As they leave, Freeway wakes up from his sick bed. Later, the warden takes him to meet Commissioner Harvey, whom he was sending texts, and Terry is shocked to find out they work together. The warden explains that he and the commissioner are good friends who share 50-50 profit, and they wanted to cut him in on the profit, but he declined. They also reveal the gambling ring they run in the prison and 7 others pitting top dogs against each other, and they tell him he now works for them. Terry refuses, and as plan B, they bring in Bones, whom they tase. Terry agrees, and they set him a match with the top fighter at a different prison, and Harvey leaves. Later, Terry and Bones plan to bring down the warden, and they inform other inmates too. Terry also calls in the lawyer Jeanette and hands her a chip with evidence before she leaves. Later, the visiting warden and his huge fighter Chaka from Aurora Prison arrives, and the warden is shocked to see him, but nevertheless agrees to the $100,000 bet. Next in the dungeons, the fight begins, and Terry throws the powder he took to blind Chaka and attacks him. However, remembering his daughter, he signals to the other inmates to get on with the plan, and they attack the guards while the wardens are panic-stricken, and the visiting warden escapes. The warden tries to escape while police officers arrive, and an officer shoots down his guard. Killian and the warden meets Terry while escaping. They fight, and Bones arrives to help Terry. The warden picks up his gun to shoot them, but police officers arrive and shoot and arrest the warden despite his protests. Janet later explains to Terry how she used the video from his chip to report the corrupt institution to the law officers. The state gives Terry a full pardon and takes care of his daughter's medical costs. Terry then thanks Bones, who asks him to not forget him when outside, and the prisoners cheer on Terry as he bids them farewell before leaving with Jeanette. He then picks up his daughter from the hospital with gifts, and they joyfully embrace and head home. Later on, Terry sends Jeanette to get Freeway and Bones from prison. In his new prison cell, the warden curses in disbelief about his situation, which brings the action-packed film to an end.